I would like to assure you that you will see Module 1 assessment posted within a matter of hours inside the Module 1, cover page, right? So if you click in here, you'll see it listed above the references and resources, all right? You'll see 1.5, the module assessment. I am tweaking some content to make sure that the things we've covered are included. Good day, Keandre, how are you? How is everyone? So speaking of tweaked content, when we were walking through something last week, I was demonstrating some things in the terminal, and at some point I mentioned that when software does not operate properly on a Linux platform within PG Book or on a Mac or in Windows, that basically there are three things to look for. So what I've done is added a Module 1 study guide addendum. And all I'm going to do is walk through this very quickly. So this is something you'll want to know for your Module 1 content that I'm adding to what's already in the study guide and in the assigned chapters in the textbook, okay? Basically, what we covered in class, and I want to commit to this course module and to memory and posterity, is that there are 3 P's of an operating system, especially when a computing application, whether it's scientific computing application or other application, if you cannot run a command or start software, there's usually something missing with the 3 P's. We talk about position or path. This is where the PWD command, present working directory, you have to be in the same directory where the executable is stored, or the path to that software from the root directory down to that software has to be listed in something called an environment variable. And I didn't go into a lot of detail about environment variables, but basically every computer system has a path variable that is loaded when the system is started up. And quite often you can resolve those issues just by making sure you're in the proper directory. So you have to navigate up and down, right? So you can either include the software path in the environment, or you can navigate up a level or down a level in the directory. Because if you're not in the directory where the software executable is listed, you can issue the command, but the computer system won't work. Any questions about position or path? So when I am talking about position or path, I'm talking about in PG Book. New version of VirtualBox. So this is something that's really important. If there is a new version of VirtualBox and you start up and you see this, it's very important for you to download the new version of VirtualBox, install it along with the extension pack, and that'll keep things stable. Now, in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and run this now. So we'll show you exactly what we mean by present working directory. All right, so as we were talking about path, Can everyone see this screen?
Yeah.
How about now? Can everybody see this screen?
Good afternoon. Sorry, my the internet around here was a little unstable.
I understand. There have been some storms passing through.
why. I think it's.
So welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about path, if you are in your platform for scientific computing applications, or if you're in the DOS prompt, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you type in the command pwd, that means display the present working directory. P for present, W for working, D for directory. Can everybody see this? So I am in the home directory for the PG book user. That's where my present directory is. And perhaps I want to execute something that's inside another directory, like inside the public directory. So if I were to try to execute something there by issuing the command here, I'm not inside the public directory yet. But if I change directory and navigate into public, now I'm in the home PG book /public directory. So now if I issue the command, if I look at this, pwd, you see that I'm in a subdirectory of the PG book home directory. So that's one reason that software doesn't run, is that you're not in the right place, or you don't have the executable listed in a path and variable. Okay, that's something we'll investigate a little more in a bit. The other interest that we covered is that permissions. We said that you, either as an owner or as a group member or as any other user, you may not have executable permission enabled. So if we look at this and we look at this command, let's go back up here. Up. Now I had to have a space in there. So now if I look at where I am, I just hopped up a level by using the CD space ... That means change directory and go up one level. So instead of being in the public directory, now I'm in the PG book directory. If I repeat my command by hitting the up arrow, what you'll see are X's listed for permissions for certain directories. D for directory. Everything with a D means it's a directory. So for this particular listing, the music file is actually a music directory, right? Now, for this mini condo latest Linux, whatever, blah, 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 that script, that SH script, does not have permission to run because you don't see an X here, you don't see an X there, and you don't see an X there. You see dashes, right? So in simple terms, read, write, and execute. If you see the letters R for read, W for write, X for execute, it means that you have read privileges, write privileges, and X for execute privileges. It means that if you are executing this file as a application or software package, because you see the X, it means that execution is enabled for the owner. These permissions represent the permissions for a group for which you're a member. Now, in this case, the PG Book account is part of the PG Book group. And so it's a little confusing because when you look down this column, you see PG Book, PG Book, PG Book, and then here you see the group it belongs to. And if there are no other groups, it creates a group for which the user is a member and it has the same name. There are cases where you have groups, you have account groups or security groups, and these accounts, like the one we set up for this virtual machine, PG Book as an account could be a member of a group called scientists or research one, or, I mean, you know, take your pick, right? So there you have it. I thought I saw somebody else was joining in. Let's see, do we have everyone here? Yeah, we have everyone here. Any questions so far?
No.
All right, so the other case where you may or may not be able to run software is a matter of privilege. You may not have root or administrator engaged, because sometimes root or administrator privileges are required in order to attempt to run a program. So that typically means you should see a pound prompt or the word administrator as you begin to work. I showed you this before. I said, if you start as an administrator, a command prompt, in the upper left corner, you should see the word administrator, right? Which means that I'm running this command prompt in Windows with administrator privileges. If I don't do that, all I have is a command prompt. And there may be some things I cannot run because, well, I don't have privileges, right? And what about in Linux? Well, we told you that there was a command called sudo su or super user, right? So do as a super user, the super user command. I know that seems a little redundant. It's going to ask me for my password. Now you see a pound prompt. Now I'm working or operating within the realm of privilege as a root. You see, you even see how this changed here. Root for the virtual machine called PG Book. So the name of this virtual machine is PG Book VM. And the name of the administrative account that operates on it is PG Book. Okay. Any questions on what we've covered? I am going to exit out of here. Well, actually, I'll leave this running because there may be some more that we're going to investigate here. Any questions about this Module 1 Study Guide Addendum? This is something I expect you to know, and it's also part of the Module 1 material was added over the weekend, okay? Once again, don't forget, you'll see the assessment here. You will have until Friday, the start of class on Friday, to complete the Module 1 assessment. And basically just be sure that you cover everything in the references and resources. Now, in general, I am not going to conduct an item analysis of the assessment items. Rather, I'll record them and I'll put them inside the resources so that you can see the item analysis from that assessment. And then I walk through, you know, especially items where most or some students answered incorrectly. It means that there are some gaps in concept. So there'll be an additional recording. You'll be able to use that recording when you reconcile the assessment. We'll cover that more on Friday. I will also be on St. Thomas on Friday in person in the CA building from 10 a.m. through 2 p.m. and conduct our classes in person from the CA building classrooms, okay? So if you, before 10 o'clock and after 2 o'clock, I'll be in the library in a glass booth on the main floor, or at least that's the plan. Hopefully there'll be a glass booth that's available. And so if you're in the library or you're in the lower campus in CA building, I hope to see you in person if you're a St. Thomas student. Any questions before we begin our review of Module 2? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So inside module 2, I will post an assignment in between the 2.1 folder and the 2.3 folder. The reason you see folders here is because the actual assignment's inside, but then there's additional materials for you to reference. Okay? So, yep. In any case, you can set up access for a Mac. One of the things that we're going to do in our second module is for you to validate that you have access to Microsoft Access. And if you have a Mac system, we'll talk about that when we introduce the 2.1 assignment. Essentially, if you are a Windows user and you have a login for the UVI campus, you can install Microsoft Office 365, from inside the portal on up to 5 systems. You do that by coming down here to Office 365, and you essentially log in. And I usually say, don't show this again, and I answer no. This is very important because when you have a collection of systems that share their authentication, oftentimes if you change your password, the stored cached password on some systems haven't been updated. So I answer, no, I don't want to stay signed in, and no, I don't want you to save my password. Can everyone see my screen? So this is the Office 365 splash page from inside the My Campus portal, and you'll notice from here, you can install Office 365, which includes Access. And that's critically important, right? So you want to make sure that that's all you have to do for your first assignment. Now, what do you do once you've downloaded the Office 365 application? To complete your 2.1 assignment, what you need to do is open Access and go, instead of opening a blank, I want you to open Account. And I want to see your name right here.
What if we already have access on our computers?
Now,
I already have access.
if you already have access, then it's okay to show this screen. It'll say About Access, and it'll show your name. If you have access and it doesn't require a UVI login, then just show this screen, okay? And I should be able to see that it says it belongs to, and then some email address or some account associated with you should be listed here, okay? The important thing is that you capture the screen with a PRTSC key press, right? And you need to show Microsoft, and it needs to show the word access here and some identity there. That's all you're doing.
Okay.
Now, if you have a Mac, what I want you to do is to watch the provided video, and that video will guide you through what you can do to connect so that you have, so basically you can claim access to Access. So for those of you that have a Mac, you may want to email me if you have a Mac before you go into the 2.1 assignment option here and watch that video, okay? Any questions about what we've shared so far in the second module? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you for answering. So essentially, the second module, we take things up a notch And what we want to do is give you a taste of how to work some issues within Linux. And there are some interesting things you can do with Linux in Windows. If anyone is interested in being a guinea pig, you can actually add a feature called Windows Subsystem for Linux, and it'll give you a Linux prompt, just like this, right? Just like the terminal prompt here, you'll have a Linux prompt inside your Windows DOS environment. So in case any of you are keenly interested in earning additional credit, send me an email message and say, yes, I want to know more about running Linux on my Windows machine. Otherwise, you have your PG book. So that's the other catch. Or you're using a Raspberry Pi, or you're using a Mac. In any case, one of the things that we want to impress upon you is that there are some advantages to actually working with characters. So we want to give you a taste of some higher level applications with very elegant graphical user interfaces, in particular spreadsheets and databases. We want you to dip your toes in the computing applications arena for commercial off-the-shelf software, right? COTS. But then by the same token, we want you to start getting comfortable with Linux platforms where you don't have a GUI at all, right? You don't have a graphical user environment whatsoever. And one of the things that really dampens everyone's enthusiasm is that they don't encounter these helpful tips and tricks up front early enough in the semester. And so that is one of the primary purposes for our second module, is to get you comfortable working with data in the Linux environment. Okay. Object linking and embedding in particular between Office applications is incredibly powerful. And so you're going to see that we're dividing things or splitting our content for module 2 into 2 main sections. So in the first, we're talking about your Office applications, how to use Excel to advantage, how to work with data in an access scenario. But then we also want you to be able to work without any graphical advantage whatsoever, right? Now, there are some things in Excel that we want to cover today. And so in simple terms, if you would join me here, I'm going to right click, and you can do this in your temp folder on your C drive. If you have Excel on your Mac or your Windows laptop, it would be great if you could do this. Open up Excel and just create a new Excel worksheet. I'm going to call this OLE demo, okay? So all we want to do is give you a taste of what OLE is and how it works. Now, OLE allows you to share data elements between commercial applications so that when you have to update information, it happens very quickly and seamlessly. So I'm going to go ahead and open my OLE demo. And I'm going to increase the size of my cells. Remember that Excel includes cells, and these are labeled or identified by the column letter and the row number, okay? Part of the challenge for working with Excel is to lay out the information in a sensible and organized and structured manner, right? So as you're looking at, one of the first things we need to learn is that how you organize your or arrange your data will make a profound difference in terms of how well it calculates and how well you can, or how easily you can represent that information graphically. Now, I'm going to walk through a simple example instead of using a complex example. But one of the things that we show you early on is this use of an anchor reference. It's called an absolute reference. I want to call your attention to two different spreadsheets, right? And here's a spreadsheet that has a formula that you may or may not be familiar with depending on your exposure to physical sciences. Do we have any physical sciences majors in the audience today? Any physics or chemistry folks in the audience today?
Me, I'm a physics major.
Okay, so let's, if you know anything about kinetic energy increases basically as the mass increases. So the kinetic energy, increase in kinetic energy or decrease in kinetic energy is proportional to the increase or decrease in mass. Stop me if you haven't heard this before.
No.
Yeah, so if you have a mass and it's constant and it's 5 kilograms, the kinetic energy really isn't going to change unless the velocity changes. It turns out that the velocity is a squared function. So as velocity increases, and here you see a factor I've embedded in this formula. So the formula for kinetic energy is Ke equals 1/2, which is this coefficient, m for mass, v squared. Now, this is a profoundly important formula because, well, let's just put it this way. Most young drivers put their lives and the lives of their family and friends at risk if they do not understand the implications of kinetic energy. And one of the powerful things about computing applications and scientific computing applications in particular is that we can communicate just how amazing kinetic energy is in terms of change, how it changes, in what manner does it increase. And armed with this knowledge, new drivers, young drivers, can avert serious problems. Now, what am I talking about? Let's just give you a quick example. Did you know that if you double your speed, most people think that that doubles the kinetic energy of the car? So the kinetic energy is the energy stored by virtue of an object's motion. In simple terms, kinetic means moving. So I have, it's not a energy capacity that has to do with its position, meaning it's higher or lower because gravity can work on it if it's at an altitude, compared to kinetic energy, meaning it's moving. So this is the energy an object possesses when it's moving. Is everybody with me? Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if I double the kinetic energy, most people think, oh, I've doubled the kinetic. If I double the velocity, most people think, well, I've doubled the kinetic energy. If I double the velocity, I must have doubled the kinetic energy. Just like if I double the mass, if I go from 5 to 10 kilograms, what you'd see over here is 2,000, 3,000, it'd be about 3,000 and 4,800. Then, I mean, just guesstimates, right? You'd see that the kinetic energy doubles when I double the mass. So people look at velocity and they think, if I'm going twice as fast in my car has twice as much kinetic energy. But if that were true, you'd be wrong. Let's take a quick example. Your car is traveling at 10 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden your car is traveling at 20 miles an hour. How much more kinetic energy do you have according to this law of the physical universe? Well, if you double the velocity and that's squared, what's 2 squared? Come on, what's 2 squared?
4.
It's 4 times the kinetic energy, yes. Now let's take that same example and turn it on its head. Let's say that we go from 10 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. I have tripled my velocity. What is 3 for tripled squared?
9.
9. 9 times the kinetic energy for going 30 instead of 10. Now, is that a dramatic increase? I would say that going from 4 times the kinetic energy to 9 times the kinetic energy for a little bit more speed is amazing. I don't know if you're impressed with that, but I'm impressed with that. Now, here's the fun part. It doesn't take you 3 times as long to stop when you're going 30 instead of 10. It takes your brakes 9 times the distance to stop. Hello. Hello. I'm trying to save somebody's life here today. You thought you were coming into a computing applications class, and little did you know there was going to be a little bit of a life lesson woven into this. All right, let's take it a step further. I'm going 10 miles an hour in my car. Now all of a sudden I'm going 40 miles an hour. I'm going 4 times as fast. My velocity has increased by a factor of 4. What's 4 squared?
16.
16. My car has 16 times the kinetic energy by virtue of the fact that it's only going 4 times as fast. I don't possess 4 times the kinetic energy. Matter of fact, I possess 16 times the original kinetic energy when my car was just rolling along at 10 miles per hour. So what, you say? Well, that means the brakes have to work 16 times as hard. It takes 16 times the distance. Now, I'm oversimplifying here. But the point is that you want to come up with a graph, a powerful graph that helps people understand what's really going on with this relationship. And I have a recorded video where I walk through this, and it's part of your assignment. I want you to walk through this too. But here's the thing I want you to understand. If I make a graph of this business here on the left side, I am doing a disservice to those I am trying to communicate with. Why? Well, because I list coefficient multiple times. I list the mass multiple times. I list the factor of increase, meaning a 25% increase. So if I multiply by 1.25, I'm increasing my velocity by 25% each and every time I use that factor. So if I have a 25% increase in speed every time, I want to see what's happening to the kinetic energy. Is the kinetic energy increasing by 25% each time? Now, if I graph this, what I have is a mess because I have all these numbers, and then when I create the chart or the graph, it's going to have all these data points, and all those lines are going to be overlapped by each other. What I want to do is isolate the 2 factors that I care about the most. Put another way, when you're organizing your data for numerical calculations, or you're organizing and structuring your data so you can use SQL structured query language, queries, you know, all that data mining that we hear about all the time. What you want to do is structure the data you're working with so that you can isolate the 2 factors you care about the most. Point of fact, in most science scenarios, there is an independent and a dependent variable. What that means is that as one quantity is manipulated, the other one changes as a direct consequence of that manipulation. We're going to go over some more examples about this, but I want you to understand here that I have isolated the coefficient and I've used it a single time. So it's not in the series I really care about. The series that I actually care about is the velocity and the kinetic energy, so that I can see side by side when I create a graph or a chart of this series of data points and the resulting change in outcomes, I have clarity. I have 2 lines, or I have 2 bars, 2 series of lines or bars. I have 2 graphical elements I can look at on a chart, and I don't have a bunch of spaghetti on the screen. This is one of the biggest problems we have, is that we have all these gorgeous tools to use, and we're just going to put everything in there, including the kitchen sink. And then we end up with spaghetti, garbage in, garbage out, right? Don't do that. Just don't. Now we're going to talk about these absolute references and how you anchor them down so that they're isolated off to the side. But I want you to notice the arrangement here. When you have absolute or what we call anchor variables, you want them toward the top of the spreadsheet and you want them toward the left side. Put another way, if I have absolute variables, I'm going to put them here. Now, what are absolute variables? Those are quantities that do not change. They're constants, right? And I'm going to use them over and over again in calculations. So I'm going to list them here along the left side and toward the top. That's where I'm going to put them, just like this. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Okay. Now, before too long, I thought I would, well, I need to mention, I'm going to finish the OLE demo, just so that you understand part of what we're trying to get at in this module. And then we're going to return to this, okay? And then we're actually going to perform one of these examples. I'll have a link for you to watch where I do this. And it's going to be one of your assignments. So I have an OLE demo spreadsheet here. And I also want to share this information every day. Let's say I'm a newscast. Well, let's say I'm a weather professional. I'm a meteorologist. And I want to have wind velocity and I'll have rainfall. All right. And then over here, I'm going to have date. Okay, everybody with me? Everybody with me? I'm going to center these. I'm going to center these and make these titles. Right now, if I were smart, I'd start using an IPO table. I'd say, okay, these are prompts, right? So these are headers so people know kind of what they're doing here. And I'm going to put today's date, right? I'll back up to the 1st of September. And then I'm going to put the 2nd of September. And the 3rd of September. And the 4th of September. That's all I'm going to do, okay? Everybody with me? And here, I could have other information up here, like I could say wind velocity in miles per hour. I could say rainfall in inches, right? So I'm going to have like wind velocity, and I'm going to say on the 1st of September, somebody give me some numbers. How windy was it? Let's say max wind velocity. Let's change this. Okay, everybody with me? Somebody give me numbers, please.
How about 25?
25 miles an hour. Thank you, sir. Next person on the 2nd.
19.
18?
19.
19, okay, thank you. How about let's say the 3rd was very calm. Anyone?
6.
6, okay. And what about the 4th? Let's say the tropical storm is near. Give me something spectacular.
110.
Say again?
110.
110. Well, that would be a hurricane, but okay. All right. Now, we're going to get back to rainfall in just a minute. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say max wind velocity, and I'm going to double click on those borders so that this automatically widens. I'm also going to go ahead and highlight this and then change the alignment so it's a little easier to read, right? It could have some descriptions, but I'm going to keep it simple. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my 2 column titles and those values, and then I'm going to insert a chart. And I'm going to insert a very simple chart. So I'm going to click on this ribbon. Then I'm going to come over here and insert, and then go into the chart options for the ribbon. And I'm going to hit this pull down because I want all this stuff to kind of populate here. And I can pick different kinds of charts, right? So there are recommended charts, all charts. You have all these different, and the goal is simple but elegant. Can I suggest to you simple but elegant? Nobody is really impressed with lots of fancy bells and whistles, but I'm going to show you some bells and whistles in just a moment that I think people would be impressed with, okay? So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to insert a chart, and now I have a chart that reflects what's going on here. Now, here's the cool part. Let's say that we're dealing with the month of August or October, and let's say these numbers are different, all right? Can everybody see that? Okay, well, that's pretty cool. The only problem is that this chart is a function of my Excel spreadsheet. What I really want to do is put this on a web page or in a newsletter that I put out, and I'm going to use Microsoft Word. Yeah, Microsoft Word. So I'm going to create a new Microsoft Word file. It's going to be a blank document, and I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this, and when I save it, I'm going to put it in I'm going to put it in the present module with my other one, right? And I'm going to call this, well, where do I have this one? Let's make sure. Where do I have this stored? I have this in my class notes one today, and it's called OLE demo. So I'm going to create a Word document that I'm going to call OLE demo, and it's going to be a Word document. Now, OLE stands for object linking and embedding. When you link an object versus embed an object, the results are different. And here's the thing. Most often when people are doing stuff with a spreadsheet and they have a cute little chart here, what they do is they select the chart. And then they go here. I'm sorry, and they go here and they select copy. Right? Now, I want you to notice the pull down, right? A lot of times when we use shortcut keys like Control C, we're copying it as a picture. And the problem is that from month to month and day to day and week to week, our data changes all the time. And if we update our spreadsheet to do the calculations, then the chart updates. But then what we have to do is come into our new Word document, our newsletter, or our web page, and then we have to change that. And here's the thing, I don't want to have to change it all the time. I want to link or embed the data so that it changes automatically. Can everybody see my screen? I'm going to copy this, but I'm not going to copy it. Not going to copy it as a picture. I'm going to copy that entire chart as a data object. Now I'm going to go into my Word document, and I am going to select the pull down for paste. And instead of just pasting normal, I don't want to do that. I want to keep the source formatting and embed the workbook. Well, if I do that, I'm putting a component of Excel directly in my Word document. So when I click on it, all the menus are going to change and Excel is going to be staring at me. I'm not so sure I want to go that far. I could use the destination theme and link the data, meaning if I have a theme in my Word document and I want to remain consistent, maybe the pretty pictures, maybe the pretty colors, you know, it looks better in my Word document because I went to a lot of trouble to format my web page or my newsletter document. Well, I'm going to do this instead though. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paste where I keep the source formatting and link the data. Can everybody see this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now here's this last
Yeah.
option. Oh, just paste a picture. Now, if I just paste a picture and things change, I have to delete the picture. Then I have to paste a new picture. And that's kind of a pain. What I'm going to do instead is this. And now I'm going to save my OLE document. And I want you to notice that my Excel spreadsheet and my Word document are in the same directory. And I've selected one of the linking and embedding options, specifically linking. Now, why do you care? Well, let's pretend that it's next month. And I'm not dealing with this, I'm dealing with October. Now, here's the fun thing about linking that doesn't work quite the same. Oh. What in the world? Oh, I know. It's automatically putting all those range. It's putting a huge range in here because I'm going from September to October. But let's say I change everything to October. Everybody with me now? And let's say October is really bad. I have a 48 wind speed. I have a 57 wind speed. I have a 39 wind speed. And let's say I have a 73 wind speed, just shy of hurricane designation. Everybody with me? I'm going to save this. What do you think happened on my Word document? Do I just have a static picture that didn't change? Or does it show that I'm in October now and my wind velocity neared a hurricane level? This is my, what? My newsletter, my webpage, my daily information, my dashboard. See, this is what we're doing. We're linking and embedding the data. We're taking advantage of object-oriented technology between the Office applications. And who'd have thought that something right off the shelf would have this kind of power under the hood? That concludes my demonstration of basic OLE as a demo. And in this case, remember, we use linking instead of embedding. We can also repeat the same demo using embedding. And what you'd see is that in here in the Word environment, if I click on here to change some entries, it's gonna load all of my Excel options up here. And all of a sudden it looks like I'm working inside Excel, but I'm still in Word. Just that I can edit my Excel data from within Word if it's embedded instead of linked. Okay. Any questions before we close for the day? We have to end our class a little early today. So to recap, what have we shared? Well, we've shared that sometimes when you're trying to do things in a computing system, it doesn't always work because you don't have the position or path, right? You're not in the right place. Another P could be place. You're not in the right place. You have to navigate to the right directory or include that software path in your variable. Permissions, you have to have the right permissions enabled, and you have to have privilege. These are the 3 Ps that keep basic applications from running properly in a Linux environment. It is part of the Module 1 study guide material, so remember, this is something you need to know for your assessment. I expect you to know this for your assessment. You want to download this addendum. But today's demo is from Module 2. And the main thing we want you to get is that how you organize and arrange the data can have a profound impact on what happens when you try to create a graph. If I didn't have some simple detail here, and I had a bunch of data like this, instead of having something easy to interpret here where I can pick up on a trend or pattern, I can't pick up on a trend or pattern if I have a whole bunch of lines overlaid. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, so this is where we're going to stop today. I remind you that you'll need to engage the first attempt of your Module 1 assessment by the time we start class on Friday at 1 p.m. and that I will be located in the CA building at 1 p.m. on St. Thomas. And I hope to see some of you there physically, if possible. If you are over by the campus on Friday, great. Now, if you're not, that's okay. We can still connect otherwise, but please start to take a look at our information and the material for Module 2. After you have a chance to engage that first attempt of Module 1. I'm going to stop sharing and stop recording.